with Danny T before the service on an unrelated topic, but part of the conversation was, at some point, we've got to learn to be spiritually mature. Like there is a deficit of spiritual maturity. There is a deficit of wanting to do what is right. And look, I don't care if you're new in the faith or old in the faith. You sin just like me. But if we're not willing to deal with the sin, don't pretend like the end consequence is not death. Are you hearing me? When you don't deal with the necessary, it does not end well. Turn to the person next to you and just do, no. Say it. Say it. I'll make sure you say no. Say no. Doesn't, that's not a no. That's not a no. Say no. It doesn't end well. It doesn't end well. We just looked at the flow of the trap. When you're tempted and being drawn away, and then the desire is conceived, it gives birth to sin, and then sin, when it's full grown, brings forth death. It's like the mouse trap. You guys ever seen a mouse get trapped? Right? What do? You open the mouse trap, nobody's going to fall into it. You put a little piece of cheese or something that the mouse wants, the mouse is going to be drawn by its own desire. It's going to look for the cheese. It's going to figure out how to get it. It's going to study the matter and be like, I know something might be a little off here, but dang, that cheese looks good. Yes or no? Because you've seen it. You know that mouse knows something about to go wrong. Because they're like going around the trap. They know something's wrong. Like, I smell metal. I smell springs. I know something's not wrong. Right? It's not on. But boy, that cheese looks good. Doesn't it look good? Show me a piece of cheese right now after this fast. I'm going to be like, woo! That cheese looks good. That extra slice of pizza this afternoon, I'm just saying. But what happens? They were enticed. They were drawn out by their own desire. They thought about it too long. And they said, you know what? I'm going to get away with it. And what do? They grab it. Why? Because their desire, it gave birth to the action. It gave birth to the sin. And what happened? Boom! Done. It's a wrap. Death comes. Now, you got to know this, that the consequences may not be immediate, but they will always come to light. And I pray right now, guys. I'm gonna say a weird prayer, and don't hate me for it, but I pray right now you are very uncomfortable. I really do. I pray that the Spirit of God has brought something to your mind right now, something of a sinful nature that you have not dealt with. And remember, sinful nature is not just what you've done wrong, it's what you failed to do right. Some of us are sinning because God has spoken to us and told us to do something, and we have rejected the call of God in our lives. Some of us have been spoken to by God, been told to humble and shut your mouth, and all you do is talk when you shouldn't be talking. Some of us, God is calling us to go deeper in our relationship with Him, and all we keep on doing is delaying the necessary and figuring out and coming up with excuses to go into relationship with Him. Are you hearing me? Some of us have allowed things to get in the way that have caused us to stumble. The consequences may not be immediate, but they will always come to light. If I had just left that patch in the wall, like I told you, and just covered it up, it was such a slow drip, it would have been unnoticeable for the immediate couple of months. But at one point, I would have been sitting in my kitchen, and I would have seen a wet spot on my ceiling right below where that bathroom was. Are you hearing me? And all of a sudden, what is that? And then I would have been like, oh, that's that false marketing that got me deceived to buy that tape that was supposed to hold the boat together. It can't hold the leak from my pipe. Yeah, no, it wasn't. It wasn't the false marketing. It was my failure to deal with what was necessary in the right way. Isn't it interesting how we like to blame other things? Be like, if the tape would have worked, wouldn't have had this problem. No, if you would have changed the plumbing like you were supposed to, you wouldn't have had the problem. You didn't deal with it properly. Yeah. He says a certain thing is death. The end of this is death. Now, okay, let's be clear. It does not always mean physical death, but it does in fact mean a life that feels like you're dying. Are you hearing me? Are you hearing me? It doesn't always mean physical death. Sometimes it does, depending on the nature of your sin. But it does in fact mean that if you don't deal with the necessary, if you don't deal with the sin now, you will live a life, or there will be areas in your life that you feel like you're dying because the sin brings death. Let me be clear. You can have one area in your life going well, but the area in which the sin has not been addressed, it feels like you're dying. Are you hearing me? We need to learn to live the way God's told us to live. We need to learn to deal with this at every step. Now, I would be not a very good teacher or preacher if I didn't tell us how to deal with this now. So let's deal with this, okay? We need to learn, this is my point number 3, and I'm going to give you a bunch of points before we close up. We must deal with the necessary at every step. Number 1, dealing with the necessary means dealing with the reality of sin. Number 2, we need to understand that when you don't deal with the necessary, it does not end up well. And point number 3, we need to attack the necessary at every step. We need to deal with the necessary at every step. Why? Because there's different steps. There is the temptation. There is the drawing away as we are enticed by our own desires. Okay? There is a moment as we're getting drawn away that the desires, they weigh on us. Then there's that time where we're thinking about them right before conception. And then there's the time where we are full-blown sin. Are you hearing me? This is how it goes down. So the first step that we need to deal with, where we need to deal with, and you need to identify where you are in this process. Okay? Is the temptation coming at you? Because the temptation is the first problem. And now, let me just be clear. Temptation, most of us, the first thing we're thinking about is maybe like a sexual temptation, right? Or a temptation to some sort of addiction that we like, or to do something we know. But it might not just be the temptation. It might very well be that the temptation is to not do what you're supposed to do. Again, don't get it twisted. It might mean that the temptation is to not ask for forgiveness when you know you need to ask for forgiveness. That might be the temptation. To say, you know what? She or he, they don't deserve my forgiveness. That might be the temptation, to not ask for forgiveness. So sometimes it's the temptation and not the trials. Remember that. What you got to understand, temptations are also certain. So what do we do when the temptation comes? You ready? Write this one down. If you're taking notes, write this one down. You might think I'm joking after I say it, but this is important. What do you do when the temptation comes? You ready? You get out. You run away as fast as you can. Not from the thing you need to deal with, but from the temptation that is making you not want to deal with it. You run away. When it's tempting you and that cheese looks so good, you run away. You get out.